Why pay full price for the remake when you can play this masterpiece for much cheaper, or even free? The Last of Us Remastered was initially released on July 29th, 2014, and is available to play right now via the PS Plus collection or PS Plus Extra. If the boot fits, you can play it. Despite The Last of Us being almost a decade old, this review is spoiler free. I won't ruin the narrative for you, and believe me, it is the strongest part of an already very good game. We won't be going into story specifics, and will only be showing gameplay from the first set of chapters. Whatever lies beyond the Capitol building is for you to discover. We also cover a new game every single week, so to support the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you have a game you think we should check out, leave a comment and let us know. The Last of Us defined a generation of story-driven games, but after all this time, is it worth your time? For me, this is where Naughty Dog perfected their old gameplay formula before blowing it out of the water with Uncharted 4. The Last of Us is divided up into 3 gameplay slices: exploration, stealth, and combat. Let's break them down. Naughty Dog does a fantastic job of giving you plenty of room to breathe in what are ultimately very contained levels. It always feels intuitive to find your way, and areas have plenty of secrets to discover. Maybe you'll find a clue to a safe that contains some rare resources to upgrade your weapons later. Or maybe you'll find a way past your enemies and be able to save what little you have for the next fight. Some areas are certainly more open than others. I can think of one major standout from later in the game, the university. However, every single area does a top-notch job of giving you something to look at and learn about the world, even when the actual exploration gameplay is the weakest part of the game in terms of engagement. There will be a lot of times in this game where you'll come up to a wall too high to climb. Sometimes you can use your buddy to vault up, but sometimes you'll need to go and find a ladder, grab it, and carry it over. Sometimes that wall is a gap that you need to grab a wooden plank to cross, or sometimes that gap is a body of water that Ellie cannot swim over, so you need to grab some wood to use as a makeshift boat. You get the idea. The game does use these mechanics later in the game to push the narrative, which is genius, but in the moment it's not very engaging. Luckily, that's where the stealth and combat come in. These sections pit you against 2 types of enemies: people and infected. Each one provides a unique combat experience. Humans are more traditional third-person shooter enemies. They'll take cover, shoot back, and communicate. Humans are much smarter than their infected counterparts, but ultimately less deadly. The humans make stealth sections harder, whereas the infected make actual combat sections harder. It's a nice balance. Infected come in multiple types. We'll leave some surprises for you, but let's talk about the regular infected and the clickers. Infected are much faster than humans, and whilst they don't communicate, alerting one will alert the rest. These guys don't need tactics. They have strength in numbers and will swarm you. Infected also move faster than humans, so lining up that headshot is a tough task. The clickers make my skin crawl, period. These guys are blind and sense movement via echolocation or clicking. This is the infected's scarier bigger brother. Clickers will kill you in one hit, and you'll need a shiv handy to take them down. Combat sections commonly start in stealth. Sneak around, direct enemies by throwing bottles and bricks, and then take them out silently. Strangling is free, but it costs time, and you can be spotted. Shivs are instant, but they are limited, and being one shiv short against a clicker is the difference between life and death. The stealth sections present you with a lot of choices in how to maneuver through each area, and it is very possible to sneak past groups of enemies in order to save resources. Should you get spotted, you'll be launched into combat. Humans will try to flank you, and infected will charge head on. Every shot, every swing of a bat, and every clicker shivved is a resource used up. And this highlights what makes The Last of Us a truly great gameplay experience despite its clunkiness. Choice. It's the choice between sneaking past enemies or taking them down head on. It's the choice between checking every nook and cranny for useful supplies or getting out while you still can. It's the choice between crafting a medkit that could save your life or using the same resources to make a Molotov to end the life of a clicker. I adore gameplay that forces the player to make what are ultimately simple choices under stressful conditions. Sure, the difference between a health kit and a Molotov isn't that much in the grand scheme of things, but when you're low on health, out of shivs, and a clicker stands between you and safety, that choice is everything. In the end, The Last of Us offers varied gameplay that manages to be surprisingly deep, despite being so simple. Its age is showing, and controls can feel clunky, but when it's firing on all cylinders, there's truly nothing like it. We're kicking off this review with a solid 4 out of 5 for gameplay. You want to know how I know this game is a masterpiece of art direction? Everybody moaned that the new remake looked identical to this version. This is a stunning game. Let's break it down. First up, world design. You visit a lot of different places throughout the game, but one theme remains prevalent throughout. Nature 1. Plant life has seeped into every crack and crevice to create a world that truly feels like it hasn't moved in 20 years. Environments are densely packed with details, collectibles are scattered within that provide unique, minute depth to the world. I always love these small snippets in apocalypse stories, tiny fragments of the horrors that others experienced. The use of seasons to divide the game up was a fantastic choice, starting in the rainy yet bright summer and pushing through to the dark of winter, both narratively and literally, only to finally come out into the lush spring looks magnificent. Winter looks especially great, flipping between gorgeous, serene nature and frosty horror. The infected are a masterpiece of design. Their horrific fungal infections really bring out the natural horror compared to more traditional zombies. Fresh infected are indistinguishable from humans at a distance, and the longer the infection takes hold, the more horrific the look. Clickers are the scariest version of zombies in any media, in my opinion. The look, the lurches in movement, and those damn clicks send shivers up my spine even just talking about them. Art direction in all facets comes together to create something that is truly unique and terrifying. Character animations in-game are solid, they can be slightly clunky at times, but that is so negligible compared to how well done the rest of the art direction here is. Cutscene animation is just fantastic after all this time. The performances given are top notch, and those are backed by incredible animation. This looks good now, let alone in 2014. UI design in menus is very basic, simply text, but it does the job. Gameplay UI is top notch. The weapon cross is a fantastic way to facilitate the quick decisions the player will need to make. The UI is a great mix of modern sleek design meets rustic roughness. It is always easy to see what you have and where everything is, and this works fantastically in tandem with the gameplay. But by far, the best thing about the art direction here is the music. That main theme is one of the finest pieces of music in all of gaming. If they don't end up using it for the opening of the TV show, then HBO will be getting an angry letter from me. The main theme has a host of variants to chronicle Joel and Ellie's journey, and the rest of the soundtrack makes great use of violins and drums to pull focus to either sadness or action. I really love the choice to stray away from any sort of electrical instruments. This all feels like music that could be played in universe, and it goes a long way into keeping you immersed in the experience. The Last of Us is simply a masterclass in art direction on all fronts. A lot of effort was taken to create a world that looks, sounds, and feels incredible to be in, and we can easily bestow the full 5 out of 5. The best part about the narrative in The Last of Us is that I fundamentally disagree with the characters, especially Joel. Despite that, I can fully understand why everyone makes the decisions they do. Joel is a selfish asshole just going through the motions, and the whole game deals with him very slowly coming out of that shell, but that core is still there throughout, and I disagree with a lot of Joel's actions. The opening of the narrative might just be the strongest in all of gaming. Within 20 minutes and some short character introductions, I am already attached to everyone and I know who the characters are at this point in time. That's why when we flash forward 20 years, it's unfortunate yet understandable to see what Joel has become. Throughout the narrative, you'll run into friends and strangers that all manage the apocalypse in different ways, and there is plenty of unique philosophy to go around. Everyone here is fundamentally human, and most importantly, desperate. Everyone is doing the right thing to them, and sometimes that is the real right thing, but there's so much greyness here, you can never truly know. The narrative has a fantastic through line of feeling incredibly real. There's also a lot that is not directly shown that reinforces character actions and knowledge. It makes that 20-year gap feel like something that actually happened, rather than just an empty amount of time. The best example of this is Joel clocking onto a bandit trap because he himself used to be one. There's not a gameplay section where you play as Bandit Joel, his uncanny knowledge just proves it to you, and reinforces his personality change from that point to where the game picks up. Clearly, we're meeting Joel partway through his development at the start of the game, and even by the end of the game, he's not the whole way there. I really love this. The narrative isn't contained to the game, it overflows outside of it. Joel doesn't start the game as mega selfish and finish as a divine saint. No. He goes through a character arc of becoming less selfish, but ultimately makes a call for himself that makes total sense and is one part of a complicated debate. Despite many points where I disagreed with Joel, there was not a single point in this entire game where I thought he was being unreasonable from his point of view. The DLC chapter adds some great context to the start of Ellie's story and is a great addition to the main tale. I could talk about this for hours, but I won't sit here and spoil the story. Just know that you're in for a masterpiece and that it gets the full 5 out of 5. The Last of Us Remastered is a solid technical offering with plenty of content. You're getting everything that came with the original release. Full story, the Left Behind DLC, and the multiplayer mode. The main story has 5 difficulties: easy, medium, hard, survivor, and grounded. Saves are stored via the console, so you have as many save slots as you could ever want. There's even a New Game Plus mode. We ran into no bugs whilst playing. The Last of Us is a solidly put together experience. There are plenty of settings available, but we are lacking in accessibility options. I'm going to be more forgiving of it here than in our Ghost Recon Wildlands review, as this is more of a case of this game being a product of its time rather than a conscious omission. Game allows you to change the difficulty. It also has toggles for subtitles, game hints, strategic tips, tutorial hints, gore, lock-on aiming, listen mode, melee prompts, tag pop-ups, reticle, HUD, and photo mode. There are no options to adjust the subtitles, but they are very readable for the whole game. This shouldn't be a massive issue. Controls has a slider for sensitivity. You can also invert each aiming axis. There are separate options to invert each camera axis. Both trigger and stick functions can be flipped. There are no options to remap controls, but again, a product of its time. Display has a brightness slider and an option to choose between prioritizing resolution or frame rate if you're playing on a PS4 Pro or PS5. The game can be locked at 30 FPS and HDR can be enabled. Audio effects has sliders for effects, music, dialogue, movies, and chat. Audio output has plenty of options to align the game with your sound system. This option was definitely ahead of its time. The game language has separate language options for text, subtitles, and dialogue. I only had the option to choose between English, Polish, and Russian. This is oddly limited, but it's not enough to dock an entire point. Overall, The Last of Us Remastered is a solid technical offering with plenty of content and plenty of settings. However, we are missing a lot of accessibility options as this game is unfortunately a product of its time. The new remake blows this version out of the water in this regard, and if accessibility is a major concern for you, I would recommend the new remake over this version. It took me 11 hours to beat The Last of Us. There are plenty of checkpoints throughout the game, and the menu even lets you know when the last checkpoint was. It is insanely easy to fit this game into your rotation or just around life. Even with short play sessions, you'll be able to get through the game in a reasonable amount of time. Hard drive footprint is on the low end of big at just under 40GB. You are getting a lot for your download here, but that download may take a while or eat into a data cap if you have one. There are some bonuses that you can unlock by playing the game. These are just a bit of fun, but are a nice touch and give some context to replays. The game never feels like it's disrespecting your time. Everything is here for a reason, and it makes for a very easy experience to get into. We are knocking a point off for the hard drive requirements, but The Last of Us gets a 4 out of 5 for a solid commitment offering. So, the question we posed at the start of this review was, how does this version stack up to the new remake with the massive price difference in mind? It is very easy to play the remastered version for free compared to shelling out full price for the remake. The remake excels in visuals and options, obviously, but the remaster easily holds up in 2022. This is a masterpiece no matter how you play it. There is a reason that The Last of Us literally defined a genre. It is a perfect blend of masterful gameplay, art direction, and narrative, and if you haven't played it yet, you are truly robbing yourself of a masterpiece. Dodge the spoilers and save yourself the full price of the remake. The Last of Us is worth your time, and hopefully this time, we went the extra mile and saved you some money as well.